The city admired today for its infrastructure and grandeur, like London, was constructed from the wealth extracted from countries like India during British colonial rule. Over 2 centuries, this systematic extraction not only stripped India of its material wealth, but also attempted to break its cultural and spiritual foundations. While people often marvel at cities built on this ill-gotten wealth, it's essential to remember that the riches came from lands that were heavily exploited. The railways, often cited as a positive contribution of British rule in India, were not intended for the benefit of the Indian people. Their primary purpose was to transport troops and resources out of India to support the British Empire's goals. The administrative framework that the British established wasn't designed for the welfare of the people, but rather to facilitate the extraction of wealth. Titles like collectors, still used today, were originally given to officials who collected taxes for an impoverished population. In some regions, taxes on agricultural products were as high as 100%, leaving nothing for the farmers to survive. The British colonial occupation devastated India in numerous ways, including through events like the Bengal famine in 1943. Millions of people died as food supplies were diverted to support British war efforts. The famine wasn't a natural disaster. It was a direct result of British policies that prioritized imperial interests over the lives of millions. Yet, this dark chapter in history is rarely given the attention it deserves, in contrast to other global tragedies, such as the Holocaust, which remain vividly remembered. British policies didn't only impact India materially, they also attacked the cultural and spiritual practices of the people. Festivals like Purnima, full moon, and Amavasya, new moon, which were deeply connected to the spiritual rhythm of life, were marginalized in favor of Western ideals of productivity. This shift was symbolic of a larger strategy to disconnect Indians from their traditions and enforce Western norms. Colonialism also affected how Indians saw themselves. The renaming of the country from Bharat to India marked a significant psychological shift. The name Bharat carries deep cultural and spiritual meaning, rooted in the ancient traditions of the land. It reflects the connection to nature, the rhythms of life, and the pursuit of higher knowledge. By imposing the name India, the British erased centuries of cultural identity, reducing a complex and ancient civilization to a mere colony. In a spiritual sense, the damage was just as profound. Guru Purnima, a festival that celebrates the relationship between the guru and the seeker, has faded into the background, even though it was once a widely celebrated occasion. The erosion of these traditions has led to a sense of disconnection among people, who are now more focused on material success than on spiritual growth. The introduction of Western ideologies and the pursuit of wealth have overshadowed the spiritual practices that had once defined Indian life. Despite the external changes, the core spiritual principles of India remain intact in many parts of the country. In rural areas and among those who continue to live in harmony with nature, the connection to the earth and spiritual practices is still strong. These communities thrive without the need for strict law enforcement, relying instead on deeply ingrained spiritual values. The power of these values is seen in the way crime remains low in areas where traditional spiritual practices are still followed. The pursuit of material wealth, while necessary in modern times, cannot be the sole focus of life. Indian spiritual traditions emphasize that true fulfillment comes from within, not from external achievements. The idea of karma, often misunderstood in the West, teaches that every action has a consequence. It is not about punishment or reward from a divine being, but about the natural law of cause and effect. Karma is a guiding principle in the spiritual life, reminding people that their actions, thoughts, and intentions shape their future experiences. One of the most revered spiritual figures of India, Ramana Maharshi, exemplified the principles of self-inquiry and renunciation. Born in 1879, Ramana experienced a profound spiritual awakening at the age of 16. This experience transformed his understanding of life and death, leading him to embark on a journey to Arunachala, a sacred mountain in Tamil Nadu. Upon reaching the mountain, he discarded all his possessions, embraced a life of renunciation, and spent the rest of his life in deep meditation. Ramana Maharshi's teachings focused on the method of self-inquiry, where seekers are encouraged to ask the question, "Who am I?" This practice is meant to transcend the ego and reveal the true nature of the self, beyond the limitations of the body and mind. His teachings were simple but profound, emphasizing direct experience over intellectual understanding. Despite his simplicity, Ramana's influence spread far and wide, attracting seekers from all over the world. The ashram that formed around him, Sri Ramanasraman, remains a center of spiritual growth and inquiry to this day. People from all walks of life come to Arunachala to experience the presence of this sacred space and to practice the self-inquiry method he advocated. Ramana Maharshi's life is a testament to the power of silence and stillness. Unlike other spiritual teachers who actively preached and conducted rituals, Ramana spent most of his life in silence, allowing his mere presence to guide seekers. He often said that the deepest truths could not be spoken, but had to be experienced directly. This focus on direct experience is a hallmark of Indian spiritual traditions, where the ultimate truth is found within, not through books or teachings. The power of Ramana Maharshi's presence is also reflected in the stories of his interactions with animals. It is said that Ramana had deep connections with a cow, a crow, and even a snake, animals that in Indian tradition are considered spiritually significant. These creatures, through their natural state of being, are seen as close to the inner evolutionary process of humans. The reverence for animals like the cow and snake in India stems from this understanding that all life is interconnected, and that animals too have their role in the spiritual journey. The inner evolutionary process that Ramana Maharshi emphasized is not about intellectual growth, but about transcending the limitations of the mind and body. The snake, for instance, is often used as a symbol in Indian spiritual practices, representing the Kundalini energy that resides at the base of the spine. As this energy rises, it leads to higher states of consciousness, symbolized by the snake. Similarly, the cow is considered a sacred animal in Indian culture, not just for its material benefits, but for its emotional and spiritual connection to humans. Ramana's connection with animals, particularly the cow and the crow, demonstrates the idea that spiritual evolution is not limited to humans. These animals, through their close connection with human energies, play a significant role in the spiritual landscape of India. In traditional Indian rituals, offerings are often made to crows and cows, symbolizing this deep connection between all forms of life. The simplicity of Ramana Maharshi's teachings, combined with the profound depth of his presence, continues to inspire spiritual seekers worldwide. His life stands as a reminder that true enlightenment comes not from external achievements or intellectual knowledge, but from turning inward and realizing the eternal nature of the self. In today's world, where material success is often seen as the ultimate goal, Ramana Maharshi's teachings offer a different perspective. The pursuit of external wealth, while important, cannot bring lasting fulfillment. True happiness and peace come from realizing one's inner nature, which is beyond the fluctuations of the physical world. Ramana's teachings also provide an alternative to the law of attraction, a concept popularized in recent years. The law of attraction suggests that by focusing on positive thoughts, individuals can attract positive outcomes. However, this concept has been criticized for oversimplifying the complexities of life and placing undue responsibility on individuals for their circumstances. Ramana's approach, on the other hand, emphasizes the importance of self-inquiry and inner transformation over external manipulation. The real power lies not in trying to control the universe or attract specific outcomes, but in taking responsibility for one's own thoughts, actions, and intentions. By turning inward and focusing on self-realization, one can find peace and fulfillment regardless of external circumstances. This inner journey is the heart of Indian spiritual traditions, and it is this path that Ramana Maharshi so beautifully exemplified in his life. In conclusion, the legacy of figures like Ramana Maharshi and the deep spiritual traditions of India offer profound insights into life that go beyond materialism. By reconnecting with these teachings and focusing on inner transformation, individuals can transcend the limitations of the physical world and experience true freedom. The external world may change, but the inner self remains eternal, and it is through self-inquiry and spiritual practice that one can realize this truth.